Who has a question? Steve.
I had one for Phil. You mentioned trademarks earlier. You mentioned federal versus state. What is the difference between those two for trademarks?
Sure, huge difference. Besides the federal trademark taking up to 6 months for them to even review your application, a state trademark, and that's maybe you hear it back after 8 months, and you had to do one little thing like change a comma, and it took you another 4 months. So, I know, the state trademark is a little bit easier. It obviously only protects, you wouldn't usually do it in the state you're in. But with states like, if you don't have a federal mark yet, sometimes putting in other states makes sense. Typically the process there is around 1 to 2 months at most, as opposed to that. So that's a huge, what I was trying to bring that up is because some of those business opportunity states will accept a state trademark and you don't have to be a biz op state there, you just use your FTD. It's very valuable to look at filing for a state trademark. Talk to your attorney whether or not that state trademark could be in your state where you're actually using it, or do you have the ability to do it in a state like South Carolina or North Carolina with the intent to use and still be able to file it, and that might give you a little more power. It depends on the state you're looking at, but if you're looking at the Southeast, that's where most of those biz op states are. It's also Connecticut and Maine. Okay.
Just to piggyback on the trademark, 2 questions. Number 1, trademark registration included in that pricing, in the FTD?
No, it's not. No.
And second question, my brand is trademarked in Europe, but trademarked globally. We were told by the lawyers in Europe that we're part of like Paris Treaty or something.
Paris Convention and Madrid Protocol is what it's called. You can file, if you have a mark in that registered office, you can base your application and get some advantages as opposed to someone like myself that would be filing just in the United States to use my franchise law mark. You would be able to take advantage of maybe earlier use, and you don't actually have to use it if you're using it in another country before you can get the registration in the US, which otherwise you would. So they're 100% right. Madrid Protocol is the way to go with that.
So then it just makes things faster.
It makes things faster, and you don't have to actually use it in the US before you get the registration.
Okay.
So do it when you get home.
Anybody else? Questions?
Go ahead.
What's the quickest franchise two-part? And that it took off quick. How long did it take? What's the slowest one? Franchise that y'all came across?
The slowest one has sold nothing. We're in progress. And probably never will. The fastest one, I mean, probably Maya has had the fastest ramp up of all the ones that we've worked with at Franchise Genesis. At the franchise consulting company in the last year, probably the fastest one was Game Day Men's Health that went from 1 or 2 locations to about 700 sold in the course of 8 months.
That's a lot to do for what you guys do though too. You're ready for that 700. However many you gotta open, you know what I mean? It's on you guys to do.
Game Day Men's Health.
None of these experts are gonna open them for you. It's up to you guys, so be ready for what you get.
It went from 0 to 700?
1 or 2 to 700.
700 sold.
Sold, not opened, sold.
What did they do right?
You know, they hit the zeitgeist of America at kind of the right time. So it is, men's testosterone therapy, hormonal type things, look young, get laid, these kinds of things.
That's not illegal to have.
I'm not going to comment on it. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One right around the corner.
You women have been getting hormones forever. It's not time we got.
The key is grow at the pace that you're comfortable with and that you can afford to support.
How many are they actually rolling out for like every month?
Game Day?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, they'll have months where they open up, 15, 20, 30.
They joined a franchise sales organization, an FSO, another acronym, that helps on the selling side of things. And they have a whole team of salespeople that work with all the broker networks that can handle a lot more leads at one time. So that speeds up that process. It costs a lot of money, big retainer to be with an FSO, but for the brands that, I want to blow this thing up and sell a company in a few years, yeah, that's what you can do.
The other thing to know about that is
One person bought all of Dallas-Fort Worth, which is 15 territories.
Right.
15 is in the 700, but he's got one location open so far at this point. So they're getting the first one open, and then he's opening up more territories over a development plan, which might be 2 or 3 years before they'll see all of those units open. But you have to have the capacity to manage all that or know what that's going to look like before you commit. Because what you don't want is someone who's going to not validate for you because you couldn't deliver and get it done. And that's going to help hurt other future sales.
So, but if it's do those folks that buy all of those territories, they have to pay up front as well, or are they putting it out?
Yes.
So there's a good injection attached to them.
But they get discounts after the first.
After the
Yeah.
safety number,
That's why it's regulated, because there could be a lot of money floating around.
Here's a question back here. Yes.
I'm not like asking all the questions.
No, you're up.
Okay, just go back to the legal. When it comes to the package, if you were to work with Genesis, like paying that fees and everything else, is the legal gonna help us like to create a company structures like the main company and the IP rights company and the franchise company? Or is it just FDD and then we should like piggyback with you after that?
Yeah, I would be, it is part of that package, and you can answer too.
No.
I was gonna try to say it like a lawyer and take 17 words to say that, but no. But the corporate formation stuff really isn't as costly as one might think. And, you know, relatively, the trademark isn't either for what you're trying to invest in the brand. And if you're not ready to do that, then I'm not sure you're ready to franchise.
For you, Rudy, actually, how do we start working with you guys? What's kind of the recommendation? We have, some Zoom, or what are we gonna do for the franchise?
Yeah, so once your FDD is live and you're registered with FCC, we're going to set up a launch call. That launch call will be a Zoom call. Not everybody shows up for it, but it gets recorded, so it'll be part of the database and we'll all get to see it. And then, however you can engage with folks, typically start with those who were on the call, follow up, get to know them, start building relationships. People that we know, like, and trust are the ones who get our referrals, right? So create good validation, have good presentation, give us good collateral material to share with our buyers, and then get to know us. And the folks that I typically recommend to my buyers are the ones that I've got good relationships with and who can close business.
And Stephen, you say you're going to start exhibiting at our expos. There's always a handful of the consultants at all the expos. You'll get to know them really well.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Rob, the annuity, is that covers in your RUCs list? I need to see that.
Annuities can be used, yes, but there's usually a surrender fee on those annuities, so you need to know what the surrender fees are. They're an insurance product, so they grow tax deferred, they can be used, but annuity is usually an investment vehicle for a qualified plan like an IRA or something like that. So they can be used.
Do you pay that 10% penalty?
Any penalties you would pay would be the surrender fees of the annuity, not the penalties to roll the funds. So there would not be an early withdrawal penalty at all.
Quick question. How quickly, Rob, do you, like, when we pass the baton to you, like, say you guys give us, say, a lead, right? How quickly do you get it to pre-qualify? Or where does that exchange happen, or how soon do we need to look at their financials?
Yeah, what I would tell you is that having worked with many of the consultants at the FCC, they are excellent about getting a CQ done and then getting it to a finance company to figure out what is possible.
On the very front end.
On the very front end, yeah. No, they're that's one of the first conversations I believe you guys hold.
So like in Maya's case, does that happen before she talks to him, or does that happen after she talks to him? Because she has that 15-minute.
Yeah, typically before, because remember, the consultant's time is hugely valuable. And if they're talking to somebody that doesn't have the financial capacity to buy a business, there's no reason to talk with them.
They're really talking to a really solid, qualified prospect.
That's why you pay a significant commission for them. A lot of the time that otherwise you're going to spend finding the lead, qualifying the lead, they're bringing you somebody who's a quality, qualified lead.
Let's do it if it's an organic lead though that you found on your own. It didn't come through the consultant. So once you get the financial information from them that they fill out in the CQ to you, and you feel pretty confident that they have some money somewhere, you get them over to route right away. like getting pre-qualified for a mortgage.
And also remember, Ralph's company can help you finance your existing business if you want to expand or whatever the case may be. So he's a great resource also for your existing platform to go to the next level.
Are there examples of very small upfront payment franchisees which have helped them grow faster? For example, we were talking about $50,000 number. Are there in the directory where they had a $10,000 franchisee fees that helped them grow in a lot? Did somebody take that?
Yeah. So the elasticity of demand to the price of the franchise, okay, it's really the bottom of the item 7, which I'm sure Bill covered in great detail, and all of you have now memorized item 7, which is the estimated initial startup cost, which is going to be a range, which includes the franchise fee, equipment, training, marketing dollars, blah, 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 through the first 90 days, but it really should be more. So even if you've got a low franchise fee, all of the other costs are going to be the same. So for instance, with what you guys are doing, let's say it's going to make a number, I don't know, $300,000 to $400,000, okay? And the franchise fee could be $50,000 or it could be 10. So if I said 260 to whatever, it really doesn't move the needle all that much. But for you, what it does by giving that money away is now you're still going to need to hire support people and marketing and so forth. So that's going to need to come out of another bucket. So I'd be careful about chopping down your franchise fee because experience and history has shown that it doesn't increase the demand because all of the other costs that are substantial and significant remain the same.
And
So don't rob Peter to pay Paul.
It probably decreases the amount of broker or consultant interest in your brand because no one's going to take 50, they're used to charging more than that. You don't want to be under. So in order to grow faster, usually they are broker driven, and that means you need to charge a little more so they can pay the broker fee.
Thank you.
I'd also
Charge a
add
lot,
that
you're worth it.
yeah, it dilutes the value. So if you don't value yourself, your buyers won't value it either. So if you believe it's worth something, I heard somebody talking about a modest investment franchise in the room, and they were charging $70,000 coming out of the gate. They wanted to be the premium brand. And to Nick's point, it's all part of the total investment. So a couple of $10,000s of dollars, whatever, it doesn't make a difference in the big picture. But if you devalue yourself and to them, then it does the same to the market.
Do people ever negotiate the upfront cost with royalties?
They try, don't do it.
They all ask and they all are told no.
Like I mentioned earlier today, about the only thing that does get negotiated sometimes is what a territory is, because everybody thinks their territory is different. So
Any material change has to be then published later. So if I give you a discount on the franchise fee or royalties, we then have to put it in the FDD and everybody's going to get it. So if I'm willing to negotiate that, I might as well just reduce it for everybody.
that's just in California, right?
I think he's right that if you're doing it as a practice, so if you're selling 4 franchises and 3 MBA discounts, we'll have to talk about it. If you sold 20 franchises and we did a one-off, then maybe we don't have to disclose it, but don't get too used to it. It's probably better not to go down a slippery slope.
And then just, I don't remember hearing about the commission on the consultants. Can you explain what that looks like?
You get to set what that is, but keep in mind, if you want to get our attention, the more there is in the pot, the more likely it is we're going to show your brand. So we're typically in the $25,000, $30,000 range, and if you're charging 50 or 60 or 70, again, whatever will get our attention will get you shown, right? Some guys chase the money, some guys put their candidates in the best position for success. I like to be on that second side of that, where I can put my folks for the best value and proposition, whatever. We make really good money doing this, but at the same time, do I like one brand in the same sector? We've got 7 painting companies. Which one do I show?
About 50% commission, is that okay?
It depends on what your fee is and how much you want to.
Look at what your peer group is paying, and then be in like the upper middle part of that. Like, you always want to be the best choice, right? If it's, well, our franchisees are really super happy, but we'll only pay you $1,000. And then somebody says, our franchisees are really happy and we'll pay you $30,000 to bring us somebody. What you want to focus on is the royalties. A lot of new franchisors make the mistake of trying to keep that initial money. But really that's your marketing spend. Think of the franchise fee as part of the marketing, right? Because what you're in it for is the long haul. By the same token, you need to leave some money for yourself out of that franchise fee. We'll help you structure that. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to bring up a point because at Guiding Financial, we receive a lot of referrals from people, and then we also work with people independent that we have to self-generate organically. And the cost to self-generate organically is a lot. Okay, and just because you put a sign up doesn't mean people are going to come knocking down your door. So the money that you invest in paying the brokers or the consultants is money that you don't have to invest paying Google Ad Search, Facebook Marketplace, LinkedIn, and all of the other places that I'm very familiar with how much they cost and how difficult they are and the conversion rate and the close rate on them. So this is a part of your marketing budget and they can drive significant qualified people to you. Don't discount that because lead generation is one of the most expensive parts of running a business.
Yeah, good point. And you want to have a diversified menu of leads coming in. Think of it like eating. Who likes bacon? I like bacon. I don't eat it every single meal as the main course. Have a little bit of bacon, have a little bit of brokers, have a little bit of trade show, have a little bit of organic. If you're interacting with the public on all the collateral, you know what it should say at the bottom? Franchises available, right? So think about how you're going to have a multi-tiered strategy to bring leads in. Some you might pay a significant part of the franchise fee to attract that lead. Some you keep 100% of it. But put the bacon on the side.
I gotta tell you, when you go to sell your company someday, they don't care if you charge somebody a one-time fee 5, 6, 9, 10 years ago. It's like, what are the ongoing royalties? What are the income pieces coming into your franchise system? That's all they care about.
Will you be sending out all the contact information of the people that spoke today?
Yes. We covered financing to finance the franchisees to start up and very creative ways that can be done. What about for high capital and high expense startups or facilitating those businesses? So for example, vendor financing of equipment that the end customers will need to buy from the franchisees or end services they need to buy. We didn't talk about that. Where do you get those kinds of services?
We've got partnerships with banks that will absolutely finance. For example, gym equipment is a very popular one. If you're starting a gym, you need to have a lot of weights, you need to have a lot of machines, and so there is financing available for those specific items. And more often than not, you'll negotiate as a franchise, having a package ready to go for people.
Were you talking about the franchisees, clients who are buying equipment from the franchisees? So you got a franchisee selling tractors. Who's financing the tractors? Are there sources for the buyer? The buyer from the franchisee is what he's asking.
We have a saying, you need money? Just ask Ralph. Just give him a call. Hey Ralph, I've got a guy. He needs to buy a tractor. Oh, I've got an opportunity here. This, Farmers Bank of Ames, Iowa. You'd be amazed. You would be amazed. So finance the franchise fee, finance the equipment, finance growth capital. Just ask Ralph.
What about your model makes you think that, and I know you're asking a specific question because your model is unique. Can you explain to me how would it be any different than someone buying equipment or inventory for their retail store from a bank and borrowing the money for that?
So this isn't the franchisee, this is the customer of the franchisee.
So you have the customer pay for the equipment?
Yeah, it would be vendor finance of the customer's needs.
Like a Green Sky?
Let me just talk about my domain, which is electric vehicle chargers. The chargers themselves don't cost a lot. Installing them, cutting concrete, putting in pipes and conduits, etc.,
that can cost thousands.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, the end customers struggle with that. So if I have something that I can offer to my franchisees to help finance their customers.
How would it be collateralized, right? That would be the question. Is it collateralized by a lien on the property? Because if you're putting conduit inside a parking lot, you can't attach that. If it's a charger, then you can take the charger back, but you're not going to dig it up, right? So, I mean, there'd be some kind of, you guys can figure it out.
Nick's famous for giving me a call and saying, "Hey, Ralph."
Just ask Ralph.
There are options. There are collateralized options, there are non-collateralized options. Happy to talk to you a little bit afterwards and give you an idea, but at the end of the day, just there's always a loan to be had. It's that wonderful, what's the term, what's the rate, what's the requirements, all of those things. So that it's a wonderful Chinese plate spinning act.
One of the great natural resources of our country are the equity markets, right? So see what's out there. Just ask Ralph. Yes.
Two questions, one for finance, one for workwear. For finance, what is the most popular product that you utilize for your franchises? Is it SBA 7A, or is it the 401ks, or just other products? Which one is the most popular?
I would say for us, would be the ROBS structure. Overall, the SBA 7A plan is significantly used, much more widely used. Just about every bank in America is doing it, so there's millions of loans on an annual basis.
If like someone doesn't have any 401ks and it takes like 6-7 months, like a faster track, like a term loans, like is it something among the product that you could offer someone, like term loans, in order to make it like faster, the process?
Great question. SBA loans can go very quickly if there's not a location involved. So we can get an SBA loan done in 2 to 3 months, but if there's property involved and you're going to do a build out, then that can take much longer because you've got to secure the location, etc. The term loans can happen in 2 to 3 weeks. They are very quick, but they're going to top out at about 175 to 200,000 for a term loan. Okay, there's benefits and there's costs to each.
And for the brokers, like, what is your vetting process? What are like top 2 or 3 things that you look at? This prospective franchisee is great for this brand. What do you look for?
Quality capitalized business with a real operating history. A CEO that hasn't been to jail many times. Okay, right. It's got to be a real business. And usually, because it's a pretty small world, the world of franchising, people tend to know each other. And so, do we know this guy? And if we don't, if we start the relationship here at Franchise Genesis, then you become known as you're going to the trade shows, meeting the brokers, and so on.
Were you talking about qualifying the individual buying?
Oh, the prospect?
It's more like for prospects, for it.
Do they have money, skills, talents, background? So, we're not going to show them something that they can't afford. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about how do you become actually qualified, or how do we look at companies to bring in? Because we turn away a lot of companies, and sometimes this business makes no sense. There's no real financials here. The person has a shady background. Okay, sometimes that pops up. But for a prospect, what have they done? Think of it like hiring somebody. So what we're going to do is understand each of your businesses, who is the right buyer. And just like you would be looking to hire somebody, what are your skills, talents, education, background, what have you done? We're going to add the additional component of, can you afford it? And then, is there territory available? You might be a great fit for one client, but you're sold out in Chicago, right? So then we're going to go look at other opportunities that are available in Chicago.
Part of the vetting process starts with our client questionnaire. So if I meet somebody, the first thing they do is have to fill out the application. I have to know what I'm working with. I don't want to waste my time with someone who has no money, right? So what does your balance sheet look like? And then we ask about a number of different industries. And I challenge my candidates on those different industries. Why did you say you like automotive or not like automotive? Why did you like pet options? Why did you like home care, options? What's your background? And I challenged them on those answers. You said no to automotive, but I don't want you to change oil. I want you to lead a team that changes oil. Does that change your answer? And so that's part of that vetting process of getting to know who my client is before I show them our inventory of buses and figure out which one to put them on.
And Rudy, I just want to, I was talking about those registration states that are really tough, some of them, and I know you expressed some consternation about how am I supposed to go through all these states? Well, if they get the information from somebody at a certain net worth level or a certain experience level, there's exemptions available too. So that means all I gotta do is file something with the state, they just, we verify that we're gonna do it, and then you can do deals with the people at a certain level. In California, if they have $1 million net worth or made $300,000 for 2 years and expect to make it again this year, there's certain exemptions. Every state is different, but it's also an important part just from a legal perspective because it might start piercing through and get you those first couple guys in a state like California. New York doesn't have any exemptions, or not that great. No one's here from New York, that's okay. But like a lot of the states do, Illinois, Minnesota, a lot of the tougher ones do have those. So that's another aspect to it because you talk to them, they say, Rudy might call me and be like, I know we're not registered in Minnesota, but I have a guy that has $1 million net worth and he's saying it there and we validated that. Then maybe we can go ahead and file the exemption so quick, like a week, instead of it being, 2 months, and these guys want to kill me, because I'm holding up the registration. But it's out of our hands once we file with the state. But those exemptions are great.
Just ask Rudy.
Rudy, is the confident or the customer questionnaire available with our partnership? If we sign up with Franchise Genesis, do I get that for my leads that don't come through you?
We give you an example of one to use. Yeah, we give you a sample that you can customize yourself.
All right, and then the other question I have, just to follow up on you mentioned the example of somebody who sold 0 franchises. Can you speak to how that conversation went after this meeting? Like, how did they get in the room and then come out of it not selling any franchise?
Typically, on the first date, everybody shows up. And then for whatever reason, things start going south. Usually we can tell that somebody, their head's just not in it on the legal side. When all of a sudden, Bill and his team are saying, they haven't filled out the questionnaire. Oh, I've been really busy. Well, is it important to you or not? So if it's a business that makes 0 sense, I'm just gonna pull you aside and say, look, renting VHS tapes, it's kind of gone, all right? I know, retro, all that kind of stuff, or whatever we're gonna say. But it's on you, it's your business. So people that don't do it, what do? They don't show up at trade shows. They don't make any effort. But like the canary in the coal mine is, how come you missed your meeting with the attorney? It's like, how come you missed your flight? What happened? You missed the flight 3 times? You know what I mean? So look inside yourself. If you want it, it's work. There's 330 million people out there, and they all have needs. Your job is to go and hustle harder and faster than the other guy. So when I look at why people fail in anything, it's because they just didn't do it.
Not the concept, it's just their personality.
Right. If you remember those 3 questions I told you about this morning, or whenever that was, right after lunch, also, are there plenty of customers across the country for the franchisees that sell the products and services too? Sometimes the model just isn't a good fit for franchising, right? It's a real niche market, and unless you just want to sell 3 franchises in the United States and that's it, so sometimes it's just not a good fit for franchising. That's rare, but that happens once in a while.
Part of what I do is, because I also bring businesses in and give them to Genesis as part of my work, as well as I find buyers to plug into your brands. I turn down 3 a month as I do a cost benefit analysis. It's not going to work for your franchisees. It's not going to work for you. There's just not enough money in it. You don't have your house in order. You need to do this, and this. Call me in a year. I turn down more people than I bring in that they never even see because they're just not ready.
Are there usually ways that they can fix it though, if they're willing to do it?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. I had a guy who wanted to do video streaming for funerals. How much money do you make? 50 grand a year? Who's going to buy that? Right? It's not worth him to set it up, and it's not worth for somebody to come in and spend $25,000 or $50,000 in fees to make 50 grand a year. They're just not gonna do it. Like, the model doesn't work for multiplying it, right? There's no benefit to putting it on the copy machine and turning out copies. It's just not gonna work. So I politely tell them no.
The world is rife with bad ideas. It really is. You know, we had you know who I'm talking about, selling refillable travel size perfume and cologne dispensers. Because everybody needs that, right? But then you can refill it with your favorite cologne. Okay. So look at it. I mean, I appreciate you want to make the world smell a little bit better, but I don't think that's a franchise, and I don't know if it's actually a viable business. So I hope I didn't crush his hopes and aspirations, but that's a true story.
Mr. Wonderful told him to take behind the shed and shoot her.
I wanted to put him out of his misery, okay?
He's got the business behind the shed.
Yes.
So if you have a franchisee that they're not meeting your expectations, they're just doing okay, but okay is not what you want.
Which is why you don't want to have giant territories that you give to a franchisee, okay? Because unless they're doing something egregious, and Bill's going to talk about termination for cause, cure, uncurable, etc. If they're just doing okay, but they're within the bounds of your franchise agreement, then what I would do, two things. One is make sure that you have a really robust resale program, okay? And that's what we can help you with at the FCC. Because what you want to do is you want to exit that person with honor and dignity. You don't want to say, you suck, get out, go behind the woodshed, we're going to shoot you. You're going to pull them aside, so here's the second thing, and say, you know, look, it's really, are you happy? If they're like, I love it, probably not going to happen. But usually, if they're not making money, right, it's not like, la la la, boom, it's, this sucks, and it's going down, and I'm trying to keep the plane up. Go, look, it's not working out, you know? Let's help you find a buyer and get you your money back, you know, or some portion thereof, or maybe more, right? And then let us help you find people for that. The benefit for all of you as franchisors is that typically the second owner of a business is more successful than the first, because the second person comes in and the business is already open and operating. And then they can take that and drive the growth. The money, the energy that they put in isn't startup energy, which you all know is a lot. For you, you want to keep that business open for two reasons. One, you don't want to ding your FDD under terminated, sold, or other, closed. Plus, you want the royalty money coming in, right? You have, who wants to go?
I want to add something to that. So there are, that's fancy. There are service models in particular, especially when there's a lot of outbound marketing that's required to bring in customers. You can have performance standards in the agreement that says, next year, your royalty goes up 2x. Probably should generate more revenue because you're going to be paying me more royalty no matter what. So sometimes that'll help drive them out of business. I'm like, shit, I'm getting out of here, and you get rid of them that way as opposed to trying to terminate them when you really don't have cause.
Two things. First off, that's a Charlie Chase quote, the exit with honor, I think, from First Service Brands. That is absolutely accurate, and I've repeated that 100 times to my clients. The only few other things is you can't be discriminatory, okay? Meaning you can't say, okay, well, this guy doesn't meet his minimum performance standards, and he's really an asshole, and I don't want to hang out with him anymore. But these three people aren't meeting their minimum performance standards, and I'm not going to do anything with them. Be careful about being discriminatory in any way. Treat everyone the same way. Put them into buckets. And what I like to say is there's a stick bucket where you got to hit them with the stick, and then there's a carrot bucket where you maybe try to work it out with them. But the carrot versus the stick is a huge part of this, and especially when you're a young franchisor, like Nick said, it'll bang your item 20 a little bit, then people in the banking industry don't want to finance you because you had 3 franchisees close in the first 2 years. You only sold 5 or got 5 open. So treating those guys like royalty a little bit, to the extent reasonable, I would try to work with them because maybe you're learning too to replicate. Just, you know, it's not always one per party in that situation like that.
My first 25 years in franchising was in operations. And so what we did in operations was we tracked the revenue of all the stores, and we always had our support team focused on the bottom 20%, making sure that we were raising them up and raising them up and raising them up. That helped our average numbers in the FDD so that people would say, okay, this is viable, I want to buy this. It helps with validation. It also helps for that one guy who's just kind of floating around out there from falling off the cliff, because we're involved in their business, we know what their numbers are, and we're always trying to help and focus and grow them. They can never come back and say, I never got any help because I was in their pocket, on their hip, whatever it took to make sure that I was going to make sure they were successful. So always focusing on the bottom half, bottom third, bottom quarter, whatever it is, keep those folks in mind. That's where the trouble starts. And so making sure you're doing everything. And if they're just not going to get there, maybe it's just not for you. Let me get you out before it's really in trouble. Exit gracefully, find a buyer, merge them with somebody else, take action.
And that's working on your business, not in your business. What he just described, you are now working on your business to grow it into a national or international behemoth.
So I have kind of a plug for Genesis. For the folks in the room that still haven't signed and you're still on the fence, like I think that you've been asking some questions like that. What I really enjoyed when I signed with Genesis, and Monique started assigning the weekly homework, then you talked to the lawyers, it really showed all of the holes in my business that it wasn't built for scale yet. So I started to realize I had to change my business model around housing, like alcohol at my venue, and I knew in my heart that it wasn't ready, but it really teaches you like, oh crap, like I didn't build Linksman for scale. I didn't know what franchising was until these guys approached me, to be honest with you. I just knew, like Maya said, Taco Bell and Subway and all those guys, but now, about 8 months to 12 months, or about 10 months later, I am very ready. I know what I want now because of all the homework and all the questionnaires to fill out the FDD, properly talking to lawyers and all the, like, it just starts to fall into places and it makes more sense. And I think we'll also realize that maybe it's not ready. You know, maybe you shouldn't franchise.
I'd like to get a recording of that and show it to some of my clients. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it really starts with you and ends with you guys. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here to help, but it's your model. You got to be all in. It's not the hokey pokey where one puts in and one puts out. And you have to have it, like I said before, fully baked. It has to be ready to go. And yeah, you can fine tune some things, but that's really a hard thing to admit sometimes when you're in that situation and you've gone into it. But do you not? How do you feel now as compared to that?
That's why I'm here. I mean, I'm ready to
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And start hitting the consultant network and all of it.
It's a real way to do it. Great job.
And he's not my client, by the way.
Okay.
You're my client. I mean,
Let's start here because you've asked several and you haven't had any, so I'm thinking you've been percolating for a while.
Something like that.
Okay.
So someone comes to me, let's say, and they say, I love puppies, and I want to be a part of Petite Pup. I heard you're franchising. Like, do you guys help us with our spiel?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
Can I add?
And you're going to be in enough shows beforehand that you're going to practice your spiel over and over. And the first 20, you're going to be like, oh, why did I say that? But guess what? And there's another one. And another person walking along and along and along. And within a few shows, you're going to say, I got it.
But also, you're the expert in your business. You're not trying to, keep in mind, you're not trying to sell them anything, right?
I can talk about dogs all day,
See
but
that-
numbers and math
That's it.
is hard.
Yeah.
Let me add another.
Something that commercial.
You have Greg and I in your backyard.
Let me add another point on that. I'll call you back. Is multitask. Okay, imagine that you paid $3,000 to $6,000 for a trade show, because that's the going rate, and you go, and it's your first trade show with Petite Pup, and you get eviscerated. Are you going back to the next one to pay another $3,000 to $6,000 plus the cost of travel plus? Usually, what happens when people don't work with us and they have to go and spend a lot of money on trade shows, they get beat up. And then they don't go. And then that's the end of the trade show meets, which, by the way, are organic, which means you keep all the money. And that's a big deal. So you want to have a cushion to be able to do that kind of stuff. And you will figure out the talk track. We'll definitely help you with the talk track.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just to piggyback on Steve's comments, how many clients does Genesis onboard every year? And what is the success rate on them in order to just scale? Like, is 100% of just turn into like being successful franchisors?
40 to 70 per year. I want them to do more.
No, we are.
I'm trying.
I'm kidding. So what's your definition of success?
let's say I sign up with you and then you just take me through the stages, but I'm not able to just get a franchise in a year or two, I just quit. So I'm unsuccessful. Like,
That's unsuccessful or successful?
unsuccessful because I couldn't just like have a new franchisee. Like it's not your unsuccessful thing, it's mine, but I couldn't find any new franchise that I couldn't do it. So do you have any clients like that throughout?
For sure, yeah, remember the first question that we had, it was, they've sold 0. So what percentage is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we can get back to you, I'm sure. We don't actually track that. Like, hey, how many sold nothing? You know what I would like to track is how many people missed appointments with the attorney, didn't show up at trade shows, expected the world to come and beat a path to their door with a bag of money and say, because you are a franchise, I want to buy it. That doesn't exist. And if anybody in this room is actually thinking that, I hope you had a great time. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. Don't do it. Just because you're a franchise, or a franchisor, it doesn't mean that you will sell franchises. What it does mean is you now have a vehicle, a legal vehicle, recognized by the federal government that gives you the ability to go and sell somebody your business. But if your business sucks, if you suck, if you don't do the things that need to happen, you're not going to sell it. It's the same as dating, right? Be open, be available. Rick can help you with that.
Let me expand on that.
You got to be active. All right.
When you're looking for franchisees in your business, you're looking for people who are coachable. I'm looking for people who are coachable, who will follow the standards, right? You're going to make your Big Mac, you're going to do it this way. Don't change the recipe. The same applies to you guys. Be coachable to the process, right? Because there's a lot of experience in franchising, standing here in the front of the room and within our organization and so on and so forth. So until you learn all these processes, be coachable. Learn the processes and execute. The ones who bailed out, M, right? I brought in, they did for a year. They weren't coachable. They didn't do the things that we told them they should do to try to close business. And then when it came time to renew their agreements, they just, we haven't sold anything. We're not going to renew. And they went away. And that happens.
Yeah, in Mobility City, exactly the same business is probably up to 70 or 80 locations. Same business, 2 different people. Same business. Amazing.
And like this gentleman just said, I mean, like, you didn't feel comfortable with launching at that time. You had the consciousness or self-consciousness or self-awareness to be like, look, I'm just not ready for it yet. A lot of people do try to do it, maybe try to do it too quick, but look, while you're learning about the franchise process and we're all maybe waiting in the wings to launch your franchise, you're figuring out the holes in your own business and you're making your own business better, but you're only going to make the numbers better so that you're more attractive as a franchise anyway, most times, I would imagine. So, I mean, it's not like it's not a learning and experience that way. And look, no one's ever come up to me and said, my franchise, my business model sucks, can I franchise? Everyone always starts off thinking they figured it all out. They got the golden ticket, but sometimes learning that process it's hard to look in the mirror sometimes and look at it, but it's important to do that. And it'll give you an opportunity to do so with people that have seen a lot, probably up more than, a lot of you guys.
Embrace the suck, I think is the expression. Like, oh, that's terrible. Great, we just learned something. Like at the FCC, we say, when we're onboarding people, the first things we say, there are no sacred cows here. If you see a better way to do something, let us know. Your background may have shown you or taught you something that we don't know. I've got a different background than you, and you, and you, and you. So we're not standing up here saying we know everything. We know a lot about a certain thing. You may know a lot about another thing. But if you're going to go into the franchise world, then keep an open mind as to how your business can run, right? And sometimes people that don't succeed in life, in general, tend to say, well, no, I know the only way to do it, right? That's the ego that then undercuts success. Go into it, keep an open mind, ask a lot of questions. Everybody here, this is like a giant mastermind boardroom right now. You may all be together at the next trade shows, and you've started here. So you have a level of trust. Say, hey, how are you dealing with your financing? How are you dealing with the operations? What's the rebate program look like that you're getting money back on your EV chargers or on your coffee or whatever the case may be? And I think you'll find all of franchising is like that. It's very interesting because remember, there's only about 4,000 franchisors out there. So if you're good at math, what percentage of all businesses is a franchisor? So you're in a very rarefied niche of people who care to see your success, as we care. This is why we've invested in all these platforms. We want to see you succeed.
So for trade shows, we will see tomorrow, but how many franchisors attend? And how many potential franchisees attend? And what do you guys do to promote them besides having brokers promote them?
100 to 120, 750 to 1,200, SEO, SEM, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of our existing database, all of the broker databases, our magazine.
Franchisees, 700 to 1,200.
Prospective attendees.
Attendees, you know what they are.
And in 30 years of doing franchising and trade shows, what I found with our trade shows, the differential has been, it's not about quantity that we're bringing in, because there are other trade shows that bring in a lot of tire kickers, but we're bringing buyers because of the database that we're marketing to. I don't need throngs of people. I need people who want a business and who have, they're kind of pre-qualified walking in the door. So we get quality over quantity. It might be a smaller number, but that's okay. We're doing deals, and that's all that matters. That's what we're here for.
It's funny, if we wanted to blast it, we would just put free food on all the things. Seriously, and then it's either triple. But then you're talking to somebody who wants, we were talking about this, I was talking about it with somebody earlier today. You're talking with some schnook, okay, who is taking pens off your table and 5 real buyers go by. Get rid of the schnook. Go after the buyers. Yeah.
So for the brokers, is this, I'm still new, considered to be new to franchise field. So is this like real estate, which only the real estate agent can get paid? Like if, let's say, you bring me a franchisee, can I pay him? Can I pay him to encourage him to bring
Sure.
a franchisee?
You can commission anybody you like, yeah.
And if you're gonna do that with your existing franchisees and they refer stuff, most times I wouldn't like to give them a referral fee. If you do, it might have to go 9 to 5. Sorry, lawyer disclaimer.
Where do I list them, like how much I'm paying the brokers? Where do I?
When you sign up with FCC, that's all, they help you fill all the contract that goes in there. Yeah.
It's not in your disclosure.
Okay, but it's legal to pay anybody.
Oh, yeah.
So just to clarify, if it's a family friend referring, you can pay them without disclosing. If they're a franchisee, you gotta disclose it.
You pay them in cash in a bag.
Sure.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that.
My bag's in the back of the corner.
Yes.
Based on years of experience, like what is the sweet spot expectations of the prospective franchises in terms of ROIs and in terms of yearly cash flow income for their families? What do they like? What sells most?
I would ask you, what is your definition of what break even and ROI is? I mean, in general, I think most business people are going to look at something and they're going to have different gradations of break even, right? There's cash flow break even, there's break even, like I got all my money back. So 18 months, I think, is probably one side of that curve. 36 months is probably the other side. But then there's some businesses that break even in 5 years because they're significant investments and the people aren't looking. So I believe break even is a function of the total investment and then what is the utilization of the owner's time. If it's a house painting business and you're painting the houses, your break even is going to be very rapid. If it's a hotel, it's going to be a vastly different break even. So it's tough to say what is the general expectation. I think probably the better question would be for a 1,000, 1,200 square foot coffee shop located in a major metro area that sells these products, what is the comparative group that we're in? What kind of investment do they have? What kind of income are they generating? How many franchisees do they have? How many closures do they have? Right? So you want to be specific. That's the great thing about franchising. It's not us standing up here extolling generalities. It's hopefully trying to teach you that there's a lot of data out there that you can go and look for, and we'll help you do it.